friend of mine told me about this place a few months ago. He said this is where I should go. I was told this was once a paradise. Beautiful garden, idyllic setting. But look at it now. What's this? Capacitors. Wire. There's another one. Oh my God. Direct evidence. An old Kenwood receiver box. What's this? An old receiver switch. Oh my God. This is proof. This is where some of it happened. Old Marantz box. Pioneer. This is where it happened. Do you remember it? It was the Receiver Wars. That's right. The Receiver Wars. You say you never heard of them? Well, I guess a lot of you may have forgotten about it, or are too young to know. So I'm here to hit you up with a little bit of history. Back in the 1960s, people bought stereo receivers to listen to music at home. A receiver is a device that combines a radio tuner, a preamplifier, and an amplifier all in one package. North Americans in particular really took to them strongly. At first they were quite unassuming, with low power and modest looks. Most of the manufacturers were Japanese, but there were a few Americans and Europeans in the mix. One of the top American brands was Marantz. More on them later. As the 70s continued, it seemed like everyone was getting into the game. These photos don't represent a complete list of receiver brands during that decade, but you probably get the idea. Most were Japanese or American brands that were manufactured in Japan. There were a few European players like Tandberg who did manage to sell a few models, but their impact was pretty negligible. Pioneer was first to hit 100 watts per channel in 1974 for a lofty $699. At that time, the best other makers like Marantz, Sansui, and Kenwood were doing was about 70 watts. Let's call this the first shot fired in the war. Watts per channel started to become a thing, a bit like the PC megahertz and digital camera megapixel wars of the 2000s. Marantz came in strong later that year with a 125 watt model for $100 more. Sansui and Kenwood mostly caught up in 75, getting close to its power and for a price point between the Pioneer and Marantz. The following year, 1976, Pioneer pushed the envelope further with a new behemoth. Priced at $900, this receiver could push out a beefy 160 watts. And as usual, they spared no expense advertising their latest Halo product. Soon afterwards, Technics decided it was their turn to take the top spot with a 165 watt brawny beast of a receiver, while undercutting Pioneer with a mere $799 sticker price. Then, out of left field came Rotel, a much less well-known brand, who introduced their 180 watt offering during the same year. It cost an eye-watering $1,100, and for a brief period, little old Rotel held the title of world's most powerful receiver. In 1977, other brands like Yamaha started seriously entering the battle with a new model that played in the same arena. Power-wise, it didn't top Rotel in wattage, but rather overtaking them in price, a stratospheric $1,500. Hitachi surprised everyone late that year with the monstrous 200 watt SR 2004. However, this receiver was quickly crushed by Marantz, who reasserted dominance with a $1,750, now that's $7,000 in today's money, 250 watt Mega Beast that even sported an oscilloscope on the front display. You may rightly ask, 250 watts, how much higher can they go? Well, in 1978, Pioneer came in guns blazing with the legendary SX 1980 and leapfrog Marantz. This mammoth device packed 270 watts and retailed for a relatively modest $1,250, undercutting Marantz by $500. As you may imagine, Marantz was not going to allow Pioneer to be the champ for long. The super rare 2600 could generate an unbelievable 300 watts of juice and grab the top spot for a period of time. If you were wondering what Sansui was doing while Pioneer and Marantz were trading blows, well, they rejoined the fight in 1979, matching Marantz's power with their $1,900 gargantuan 100-pound G33000 two-piece solution. Now, some say Sansui was cheating and they were not actually receivers because the amp and power transformers were in a separate chassis. Looking at these intimidating blocks of shiny awesomeness, you may think that this was probably the ultimate look in pure ass-kicking industrial design. And you know, looks-wise, I would totally agree. Holy smoking receiver! When did the war end? Did Marantz and Sansui finish on top? Was 300 watts per channel the limit of how high they went or could go? In my next video, I will reveal what happened next and how the receiver wars ended. And ended they did. Hey look, I brought back an artifact from my trip to the woods the other day. It's a Pioneer box. I would have stayed longer and maybe made some more discoveries, but it was getting dark and it started to rain, so I had to get out of there. Now I'd like to show you some of my own pieces from those early days during the receiver wars. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those top models. Maybe one day. You know, those Yamahas look pretty sweet. I'd like to get one of those, I think, first. Anyway, the thing about those big receivers is when they show up on eBay, they usually command a very high price. I even read that some of those top Marantz get over $6,000. This 2270 was Marantz's top of the line between 1971 and 1973. It had 70 watts per channel and it's very heavy. It was a beast in its day. The 2230 has a similar look but with fewer buttons and one less meter, and obviously only 30 watts per channel. I plan to cover Marantz in a future video, so keep an eye out for that. It's a very interesting story. Thank you for watching this My Own Devices video. If you'd like to see more in the future, please subscribe. Look at the trees. They're still leaning. I still haven't recovered from the calamity, the devastation.